This is Baruch Fleischman here, and once again we're at the Tikkun Elevator Kollel, and we're looking at the book written by Yaakov Kronenberg. I will tell you that he's not a rabbi, although you'll see that from some of the things that he's done, he is a very brilliant guy. Jewish Astrology, a Cosmic Science, Torah, Talmud, and Zohar works on spiritual astrology by Yaakov Kronenberg. So we'll come over here and we'll take a look at the words that he's talking about. Particularly, the question is astrology according to Jewish law. So this book is not small. It's a companion. It's based on a series of lectures that Yaakov Kronenberg gave approximately 10 years ago, or going back approximately 8, 9, 10 years ago. And he produced this book. He was had a wealthy guy, and so the book itself needs editing. He found somebody to publish it, so therefore it's here for us, but we have to work on it in order because it was delivered from lectures that were copied by a scribe, and sometimes it's superfluous. It's just got too many things in it. Let's bring this down a little bit lower so we can see what he's actually talking about. And he's particularly talking about a rabbi by the name of Rabbi Avraham bar Chiya, who is one of the few people from the Middle Ages that we have that can give us an idea of what Jewish astrology is. Let's try to understand, remember there's astrology, and then there's Jewish astrology. So to get to the idea of what's the difference between the Jewish understanding of the cycles of the universe and that of the Gentiles. So we're learning right now the works of Rabbi Avraham bar Chiya. Now he writes over here, although the Jewish books and writings were not publicized properly, and this is one of the things that he's saying, is that this person is not well known. During this oppressive period of history, when he lived, at the time he lived, there were many wars and many difficult problems for Jews. Even many Jews were not aware of someone like Rabbi Avraham bar Chiya. I'm going to skip down here. And he says he was an important rabbi, but today we hardly know anything about him. So that in order to really get into this deeply and find the origins, that is Yaakov Kronenberg, had to find him, had to find these works. He wrote a book of Shilas and Chuvos. Shilas and Chuvos means questions and answers. He says they consisted of questions people asked the rabbi, together with the answers and the logical reasons for them. That is, on the Jewish law. And these books were called Question and Answers, which in Hebrew was called Shelot and Chuvot, or Shilas and Chuvas in Ashkenaz. They were written in different times. So over the course, rabbis, this is common and it happens today as well. They were written in different times. So if you learn them, you'll get some idea about the history of their times. Through these questions, it is possible to learn the history of the last 1,500 years. You can understand what people were concerned about. Every generation has its own problems, and different generations have different questions, which are relevant for this particular generation. There is no generation that is exactly like the one which came before it. Like today, there are questions that were never asked and dealt with before, such as, what about cloning? How do you observe the Shabbos when you're in a spaceship going to the moon? Also, all kinds of medical and reproductive questions, which were never asked before. So it's really possible to realize what problems bothered each generation. And through those books, it is possible to learn a tremendous amount of history of the world. Time is always changing, and it is everything, and with it, everything in the world changes and moves, and nothing is constant. So let me write this again. He says, time is always changing, and with it, everything in the world changes and moves, and nothing is constant, which is one of the important ideas in astrology. There are no 2 days or moments which are the same as any other. One of the principles of one of the great Kabbalists in the last 100 years, Rabbi Shlomo Elyashev, he wrote that nothing stands still and everything is in movement. That is inside of our bodies. This is me answering this. This is outside of our bodies. This is the fact that we're on a planet that is actually moving. The whole world constantly moves. So things may come up while others seem to go down. And maybe inside all this system, one may seem to stand still, but the things just don't stand still. As I said, like previously in my own look at this, is that everything is moving in tandem in a certain way. So it seems as if that we're all in the same place, but we're not. We will discuss the subject through the question and answers discussed in Rabbi Avraham Chiya's book. I will tell it to you outside the text. So when we actually study this book, let me get this up here where we can see it, it will be easier to get an overview of what questions and answers the book is about. I have translated the book it's a book of about 35 pages, so we will cover it in a fairly short period of time. But it is tremendously interesting, and not only about the Jewish law's approach to astrology. We are going to learn a lot of the basic principles of how the Jews approached the whole subject of astrology, if they saw problems with the astrology or not, how they viewed it, if there are different kinds of astrology, and all sorts of things. It also talks about Jewish law and astrology, and many interesting studies and subjects and matters. I have made my own views on astrology and Jewish law, but I don't consider myself a rabbi, though I have studied on and off over 30 years in yeshivas, so I don't consider myself an authority in legal areas of rabbinic matters. Today, it is a generation of specialists, where each person is a specialist in a different area, and only a few people specialize on a combination of things at one time. So I consider myself a specialist on mystical matters of Kabbalah. So if a question arises on matters of rabbinic areas, I think everyone should ask their own rabbi. I can tell you what I think, but you shouldn't consider me as an authority. So that's Yaakov Kronenberg. Well, let's see if we can get a little bit more before that comes into being, before we finish here. In any case, let us read the book of Rabbi Avraham Bar Chiya, which I think is very revelatory and is going to add a lot to our understanding of Judaism and astrology. What I will do is read a paragraph, try to explain it, read it over and over again, and we will try to talk about it a little. So let's give an introduction to what this letter is about. Rabbi Avraham Bar Chiya was a senior rabbi in Spain, a rabbi of his town, around the year 1100. So it's very interesting that many great things happened in the year around 1100 in Spain and in the Mediterranean. He had a student, a Talmud in his town, whom he was very close with. The student was going to get married on Friday morning. So Rabbi Avraham and the student picked an hour during which the wedding would take place, which would be fortunate, good according to astrology. In other words, there are times when the ascendant is really working well. That morning, one of the congregants died, and according to Jewish law, when a burial and a wedding have to take place at the same time, the burial takes precedence, and therefore the wedding has to take place later. So I don't remember the exact hour the wedding was supposed to take place, but let us say that it was 10 o'clock in the morning. But then they had to bury somebody, so the wedding was postponed to 11 o'clock. So the student came to the rabbi, Rabbi Avraham Bar Chiya, and he asked, is 11 o'clock a good time to get married? So and the rabbi replied that he didn't think 11 o'clock was a good time, and suggested the wedding would take place at 1 o'clock. We will later read the letter and understand why. But the congregation heard that the wedding was delayed to 1 o'clock, and its members wondered why it had been delayed for so long. When they heard that this was due to astrological reasons, many of them said, what are you doing is forbidden. It's like black magic. There is no place for this in Judaism. You go too much according to astrology. And the rabbi eventually had to conduct the wedding at the time he concluded was not so fortunate astrologically. In any case, the rabbi wrote a letter defending himself, So I guess he wrote the question and replied to his own question. The letter is introduced by a friend, he said, by a friend. This is the letter of the brilliant scholar, the Prince Rabbi Chiya the Sephardi. May his memory be blessed. He was also called Ishab el Shorta, concerning events that happened to him. This letter was sent to Rabbi Yehuda, the son of Rabbi Barzillai al Bartoloni. May his memory be blessed. Rabbi Barzillai himself was also a great rabbi of the time. I think he's the same Rabbi Barzillai who wrote a commentary on the book of Yetzirah, written by Avraham Avinu, which is the most ancient work of Judaism. So I left a little bit out of that, written by Avraham Avinu. We're going to stop right here. It's going to be our stopping place. And we'll pick this up and continue going on with it. He's making a nice little case. Hope you enjoy. This is Baruch Fleischman.